From vaudeville to the silver screen to the small screen, the Marx Brothers made an impact wherever people found them. Now, Tom Fox and Mike Volkov bring them into the boardroom to help explain and explore the sometimes chaotic world of governance, risk management, ethics, and compliance. This is Why a Duck? Into the Compliance Soup, which is part of the Compliance Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back with Mike Volkov for another episode of Why a Duck, where we share our joint love of the Marx Brothers and our joint passion for compliance. So, Mike, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Great to be back.
Mike, in our prior episode, we considered the OFAC compliance framework, but more importantly, introduced the movie The Coconuts. It has what I think is your favorite routine. So why don't you regale us of tales of Why a Duck?
Why a Duck? Well, and by the way, this is the name of the program. This is what the name of our program comes from, is the famous scene where Groucho is showing to Chico the map of the properties in Florida. And he's basically, there's going to be an auction, and he's sitting down with Chico, and he shows him the map of the lots that are going to be put up for auction. And he says, now, here's a little peninsula, and here's a viaduct leading over to the mainland. Chico looks at him, why a duck? And he says, why? It's the most exclusive residential district in Florida. Nobody lives there. And then Chico goes, yeah, but why a duck? And he goes, why no horse? Why no chicken? Why a duck? And on it goes with the routine. And the viaduct became Why a Duck, which became a famous book, which you and I both have about the Marx Brothers, called Why a Duck. One of the best scenes. Now, wait, but you can't stop me on this one, Tom, because we have to, of course, point out. Oh, wait, let's stop, Tom. You know what? I got another idea.
Okay.
Do that. Listen to this. Let's see if we can play it. Hold on. I'm going to see if I can set it up and then play the scene. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Listen and see if this comes through. It's 35 seconds.
The Coconuts. Check into a hotel full of fun and laughter in this hysterically funny film starring the Marx Brothers.
Mr. Hammer, I think I know what's wrong with the hotel. I think I know, too. You're fired. Get your hat and my coat and get out. Oh, gentlemen, I'll come in. What are you boys?
No, it doesn't have the... Let me see if I can get the viaduct scene. But does that come... It's hard to hear it, right?
Well, the promo part I could hear. The actual movie dialogue was a little more difficult.
Yeah, let me try it. Why a Duck scene, Coconuts. You know what's another good scene in Animal Crackers is A.V. the Fish Man. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yep.
Why? Yeah.
So, or my favorite, here's the Levy. He says, oh, that's where the Jewish people live.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on, give me 1 second. We'll start over. Sorry about that.
Oh, I can just edit this out.
Oh, okay. I got you. The contract scene, hilarious auction scene. No. Bummer. Okay. Doesn't have it. So let's just, let's go back. What would we do? Where do you want me to pick up from then? You tell me.
So let me, there's something I wanted to comment on, and then you can jump back in.
Okay. Yeah, you go ahead. Okay, good.
So really, Mike, it is hilarious, and it is not only side-splitting, it is tear-inducing. And Mike is just giving you a flavor because it goes on for a good 5 minutes, and it is nothing but comebacks and zingers and racial insults and personal insults. And if there was ever a scene of two brothers doing the brother thing, this was it. Why a Duck? I can't emphasize how funny that scene is. And the other thing is, because this play, I should say, the movie was based on a stage play and was filmed as a stage play. It's just gags. It's very little physical comedy that we see in later movies, and it's just wordplay. And this is what I was introduced to the Marx Brothers on, and so this would have been the 70s, I guess. And you rarely got that wordplay only with no sort of physical gags or things to go along with it. It was just a great scene and as a part of a great movie.
A couple of lines from Groucho from the movie. 3 years ago, I came to Florida without a nickel in my pocket. Now I've got a nickel in my pocket. He says, Margaret Dumont says to him, get out of this room or I'll scream for the servants. Groucho says, let the servants know. Let the whole world know about us. You must leave my room. You must have regard for certain conventions. And then he looks at the camera. He goes, one guy isn't enough. She's got to have a convention. Anyway,
it was a great movie. If you haven't seen it, watch it. If you've seen it, watch it again. We both loved it, and we're going to talk about it some more. But Mike, we had three, I thought, very interesting SEC enforcement actions at the end of the U.S. government's fiscal year, which was September 30. And so we're going to, over the next couple of podcasts, we're going to take those up. And I wanted to start today with Barclays Bank because Barclays is well known for its prior regulatory stumbles in the banking sector and its actions of its chief executive, Jess Staley, to unmask an anonymous whistleblower. It came to grief for its actions in the Asia-Pacific region, as other companies have, and specifically including banks. According to the SEC press release, it provided valuable employment to the relatives, friends, and associates of government officials to obtain and retain business and other benefits. Many of these relationship hires were made through unofficial intern program, but some were hired through Barclays' formal intern program, its graduate program, or as candidates for a permanent position. The bank failed to devise and maintain a system of internal controls around the hiring practices sufficient to provide reasonable assurances that employees were not bribing foreign officials in violation of company policy and the FCPA. In addition, with respect to certain hires, Barclays employees in the Asia-Pacific region falsified corporate records to conceal the true source of the candidates and the reasons for hiring them. These actions mandated a finding of a violation of the books and records and internal accounting provisions, control provisions of the SEC Act of 1934. Barclays agreed to pay a fine of $6.3 million, consisting of disgorgement of $3.8 million, prejudgment interest, and a $1.5 million civil penalty. Mike, what did you see as the lessons learned for the compliance practitioner from the Barclays FCPA enforcement action?
Well, I think there are a number. First off, it demonstrates yet again another example of a company getting hit for hiring of relatives of foreign officials. They joined the exclusive club with Bank of New York Mellon, J.P. Morgan. And so, look, Barclays, their conduct here, as you read this order or settlement order, is just atrocious. And as a matter of fact, one senior banker, for example, who was responsible for the hiring program, said, quote unquote, the key factor behind relationship hiring decisions was what business the client could deliver to the bank, close quote. Amazingly, Barclays compliance officers were aware of the hiring practices by June 2009, but claimed they were not aware that its anti-corruption policy prohibited such hiring program, even though it explicitly stated so. In an amazing claim, at least in my book, a senior APAC compliance executive, I mean, let's start with those words again, senior APAC compliance executive claimed that he had never read Barclays' 2009 anti-bribery and corruption policy, and that he himself did not understand that compliance was required to review and approve internships or other hiring decisions. I just would like to know, who is that senior APAC compliance executive? That's an incredible claim. Barclays senior executive claimed that he never knew that offers of employment were items of value under anti-corruption laws. I mean, Tom, how can you run a global bank with a reputation such as Barclays, have a policy on the books, and then have even your compliance executives not understand it? To me, the conduct is atrocious. And the lessons learned are, this is the sign of, you want to talk about a paper program. I think this is one of the most horrific examples of paper saying one thing and people doing others. That's probably my main thing. But what's interesting is that this conduct continued all the way into 2013, even though in 2011, I believe it is, that they adopted, or 2012, they adopted a revised policy that required an attestation from the proponent of a hire that the hiring was not being made for the purpose of obtaining or retaining business. Yet, people were still saying that when it wasn't true. In other words, they were falsely certifying to this. But now, remember, this is just the Asia region, but you have a lot of money and a lot of incentives in this circumstance. And what is also amazing about the facts is the government was able to link directly the hiring of a particular individual who is usually unqualified or in over their head, and the award of contracts that came from the parent, usually the father, and the employee usually worked on those matters that were controlled by the father. And of course, there's no concern about conflict of interest of having the employee work on her father's business. Just incredible to me. I mean, this reads like here's what we don't do, and here's why we do have a hiring policy which is enforced. And one trend, I think, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, Tom, is in response to these cases, I've definitely seen more companies and clients, developing specific hiring policies to capture these cases, isolate them, and make sure there's certain approvals that are secured in terms of extricating it from the business and making sure there are controls in place to make sure that the decisions are properly made. But that's the trend I've seen. But it took these egregious situations.
So, Mike, I guess the two things I would like to follow up from your points were that we don't often think about the very basics of FCPA training. What is the FCPA? What does it prohibit? Who does it apply to? And for me, this case sort of suggested that maybe we need to occasionally go back to the basics on training. What are the very basics? Who is your chief compliance officer? So maybe a company that hasn't done the basics because they think they've covered that multiple years and they don't want to induce training fatigue, maybe it's time to just go back to those basics, because you certainly are going to have new hires. And then your point on the compliance officer who either hadn't read the compliance program or didn't realize it applied to these situations. You cannot have gatekeepers who don't know their gatekeeping role. If you got a sentry out there in the middle of the night, he's got to know to stop people before they come into camp and murder all of his colleagues and comrades. So the gatekeepers they need additional focused training, and you have to make sure that a gatekeeper is going to be effective. All in all, just as you said, a really bad set of facts. I would say it happened a long time ago, but that's no excuse, because it was clear that they knew and didn't do anything about it. So the Barclays case is case one. I hope you will join us again in our next episode, where we're going to take up the quad graphics case. Mike, till then, I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thanks, Tom. See you soon.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Why a Duck. Make sure to subscribe, and if you enjoyed the episode, leave a review.